Welcome to Behind the Event, a podcast that dives deep into the event industry. I'm Eric Westendorf, the founder of EventRender. The podcast is brought to you by EventRender. We help you run profitable virtual and live events through exceptional design. Be sure to check out our helpful event applications and design services at eventrender.com. Also, be sure to subscribe and like on whichever platform you use for podcasting, or if you're watching on YouTube, subscribe and like there. And now we bring you Behind the Event. All right, so today on the podcast, we have a great interview coming up with Shane Allor. Shane is he's the vice president and hotel general manager at JW Marriott Las Vegas Resort and Spa. And so he kind of comes from the perspective of the hotel side. So today we're going to kind of dig deep on the hotel's sort of perspective, venue perspective, and what he's been seeing and how things are going with that. The JW Marriott Las Vegas Resort and Spa, and correct me if I'm wrong here, is a 550 room hotel. I also just read you have 35 event rooms with 110, almost 111,000 square feet. So a lot of space available, correct?
Yeah, a lot of great meeting space that we need to fill up.
Exactly. And then the largest capacity is 1,500 people. So that's kind of the overall look of what Shane's working with or what he has available. So we can definitely dive deep into some of the possibilities and what's been going on as far as the venue goes. Can you kind of, before we get into some of the questions about what you guys are doing and everything, could you just briefly give an explanation of sort of your role at the JW? I know you also just started there in March, which was a great time to start, I'm sure. But you've been in the business for a while, so could you just give a quick brief sort of overview on your role and how things work for you there?
Absolutely. So thanks for having me. We as you said, have a great JW Marriott here in Summerlin, just outside of Las Vegas Strip area, about 20 minutes away from the Strip. Sits in Summerlin, which has some nice elevation looking down over the Strip, close to Red Rocks Canyon. So more of a resort setting, not the typical Las Vegas Strip type hotel. We also do have a casino, Rampart Casino, which is owned and operated by the same organization that has the hotel here. I do not oversee the casino, although of course would love to help generate revenue for the casino via the hotel and taking care of casino guests and bringing in guests to the hotel that of course will go spend money in the casino. So my role is really to oversee the operations of the hotel itself. So there's the sales aspects of that. Some of the hotel marketing I'm involved in there. Obviously the rooms division, housekeeping division, engineering, public areas, all the things that kind of help make the hotel tick. I'm involved in event management as well. And as you can imagine, you mentioned I started here in March. I did start on March 9th. And of course, COVID really wasn't really being talked about as I moved here from South Florida. Really wasn't a thing at that point. And by the end of my first week, I had shut down one tower of rooms and closed the spa at the beginning of the second week. And then by the end of my second week, closed the entire hotel. Of course, the casino closed at the same time. And that was a governor's directive to close casinos. You didn't have to close hotels. However, obviously with our property, we have the casino that's attached to the hotel. It doesn't really make sense to have one without the other, or at least it doesn't make sense to have the hotel without the casino anyway. Okay. So we closed at that time and really just kind of worked with our associates to ensure that they were taken care of in the short term, and benefits continued. We thought this was a very short term kind of situation. Here we are, 7-8 months later, and we're still kind of in the thick of it, it seems. However, just kind of working on forecasts to bring the property back, and finally in June the casino was able to reopen in June, and then we just built a forecast to open the hotel July 1. Of course, having 4th of July early in the month was helpful because it's a pretty busy transient time frame and lots of drive-in business here anyways. So July 1 worked out well for us, opened one tower of rooms. And then kind of slowly as business built back up, we opened the other tower of rooms just Thursdays through Sundays. And now we have a little bit of group that's in-house, not the traditional group, it's a golf group, but we have a little bit of group activity in-house, and you couple that with some of the leisure business, and we now have both towers open 7 days a week, probably until after Thanksgiving. And then usually there's a lull in business here if there isn't any convention or group business, that first couple weeks of December until you get to the Christmas timeframe. So we'll probably go back to one tower over that time, and then over the holidays we'll be busy again, and we'll open up both towers again. So it's really kind of behind the scenes, been just working with my finance team and revenue team on forecasting and expenses, and just trying to minimize minimize the expenses that we can and grow the revenue obviously where we can.
Right. Yeah, I'm sure it's all a bit of a struggle, or obviously nothing that you're used to. So
Right.
There's a lot of trying to manage a lot of pieces. I'm sure you're already managing a lot of pieces in a hotel. So interesting. 2 weeks in, and you have to basically shut down the hotel. That would be rough.
I grew a big beard, I can tell you that.
Yeah, we all have. I've kind of grown a lot of hair out as well. Trying to not go to the haircutter as often as I can. So yeah, obviously there's a lot of things happening right now, and obviously things are still kind of in flux, given kind of what you just said. Could you talk a little bit more about what events specifically look like at the hotel right now? You mentioned that there's been a couple things. Could you kind of explain what they have looked like, what you've sort of done, and then maybe go into what the capacity and the safety measures are for what that looks like?
Sure. So there hasn't been a ton of activity on the group, kind of convention meeting side. What we are seeing though is we are seeing a lot of day meetings, just kind of local corporate day meetings that are coming in with, 15, 20 people, and they're meeting for the day and just paying meeting room rental, kind of doing their, going to our outlets for their food and beverage, or if they do have food and beverage needs, we're doing it from the outlets into the banquet space. So that again, they're kind of single serve and kind of boxed options there. Alternatively, we've seen some golf group. Golf. We have our TPC Las Vegas course is right across the street from us, and that's our partner course. So we work with them a lot on golf groups, and it's a popular golf destination. So there is definitely some pent up demand for people getting out and getting on the courses and kind of getting back to their buddy trips and their club trips and things like that. So we actually have one of those in-house right now, and we have seen some activity with that type of group. But again, typically that kind of group is not doing as much on the meeting side or on the organized food and beverage side, and they're more enjoying the amenities on their own and using the outlets, and of course they're out on the golf course during the day. So we've seen that, and then our social business has been still pretty strong. So this property typically does about 75 weddings a year anyways. So that business is. Some of those groups have moved to 2021, but some have decided to stay on board. And the more recent restrictions up until now, or until a month or so ago, were no organized events inside of function space of more than 50 people. Mm-hmm. So a lot of those weddings just kind of stuck with the 40 to 45 person type event, and socially distanced, and just all the precautions, of course. And then we just recently have moved up to 250 people, which is great. So now, of course, we can.
Is that even in your larger space that has a 1,500 person capacity? 250 is still the max in there?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. It's 250, or it's like 10% of your capacity. Okay. Whatever is greater. So
that would be the largest you could hold.
That would be the largest that we could do here. Correct. And
does that have to? Could you talk actually a little bit about what that looks like? Does everyone have to be spread out, or how does that typically work?
So depending on what your setup would look like, you want to keep your 6 foot, socially distanced settings. So if it's a classroom setting, you're doing really 1 per 6 foot table, and you have kind of ingress, egress. So there's one way for people to come in, one way for people to go out, probably as most of us have seen in grocery stores and things like that. We're doing that. They're really, cracking down or being strict about, congregating around registration tables. So what they're recommending is if you do have a corporate or association type meeting, that you get registration done online and get as much done online as possible. So you don't have people that are kind of heading at that first day or that first morning to a registration desk and kind of congregating and building up too much, activity there. Same thing around restrooms, public restrooms and meeting spaces. They're just pushing back on congregating around restrooms and lines of restrooms and things like that. So we are responsible for helping in a lot of those areas. And of course, we're asking the customer to abide by these Nevada guidelines as well that have allowed us to go up to the 250 persons. And then, of course, you have all of your cleanliness guidelines. Your Marriott has a Commitment to Clean program that really revolves more around the public spaces and guest rooms and things, but it's really no different in the meeting spaces where, we're cleaning and it's single use type of materials, and we're not doing water. There's water stations instead of the
Sure.
the pitchers, things around and things like that. Just things that people can grab a bottle of water on their own and dispose of it themselves. Kind of cutting down on pens and pads and things like that in the room, so that again, less contact. Things get sanitized at break times. We haven't seen a lot of that activity. Here's what I always tell ownership groups and senior leadership, that just because we can do up to 250 doesn't mean that groups are ready to do those big meetings yet, or to those larger meetings yet. So we're still seeing a little bit of hesitancy in that type of activity for the balance of this year. As we get into next year, the first quarter is still a little slower. We're really only projecting what we do have on the books now for the first 2 quarters is all we're really projecting. And there still could be some risk there because there's some larger programs that, if this continues, could back out. So we haven't seen everything I've described to you as what we would do. We haven't quite seen that. There have been a couple larger day meetings. There have been a couple larger events that are like a bodybuilding event and things like that have taken place that really don't have guest rooms attached to them. But that traditional group that has your guest rooms and a sales meeting or an incentive program or association event, those for us aren't really happening yet. And in this destination, haven't really seen much of that happening either.
Is that because you think they're typically, huge groups of people?
Some of those are,
they also need hotel rooms, like you were saying.
That have simply, some of them have gone to other destinations that have, restrictions have kind of lightened up a little bit more. Some have just simply said, let's wait until next year. Some have, shrunk down their event and done part virtual, part live. And then, like the meetings that we would host, again, we're not a 4,000 room property with, hundreds of thousands of square feet of space. So our events could be up to 450, maybe 500 rooms, and typically a 500 room program wouldn't be more than, if you're doubling everybody up, of course it'd be larger, but you're typically looking at 550, 600 people. So we just haven't seen that kind of program come back, or we don't have anything really like that on the books even for 2021. Although there's some larger programs that are on the books, there's just not a lot of lead volume that's coming in for that size program until you get more into 2022. Now, we do book some short-term opportunities. So, I think that smaller program, that 10 to 200, 10 to 150, that size program, I think we'll have some more success with next year because it's a little easier to execute those programs, easier to plan those programs. When you start talking about the social distancing and how are you going to do the meals, and are you going to have lines of people going into a banquet room for a luncheon, and how do you control that, and do you kind of execute those in shifts on luncheon, things like that. So when you have the larger program, you have a little bit more to think about. On the smaller scale, we can execute much easier right now.
Yeah. Given you need the extra space all the time, people are more open to do it.
Right.
Have you had to, I guess if you want to, you could go into any sort of examples of this if you've had any, but has there been any situations where companies have come in and done sort of, the sort of hybrid situation where they've been sort of online and as well as in person?
We did have one in August. It's a smaller program anyways, but they did come in August, and they brought part of the group here. It was a pretty small number, maybe 10, 15 people they had here, and then they had the rest of the conference virtually, and they had everybody up on the screen, and you could watch what was going on, and you still ask questions, and they're doing their regular meeting. It was just part stayed in the office, part came to the property.
Okay.
And so they come every year in August. I believe their coming again next year with more of a plan to be back here on property.
Okay. So maybe they'll slowly build that event back to what it was.
I think so. I mean, I think everybody wants to meet. I keep hearing these stories about, well, people see how you can do meetings now without having to be in person, and the same thing happened, unfortunately, after 9/11.
Mm-hmm.
The same thing happened after the financial crisis of 2008, 2009, and here we are once again. Of course, this is taking much longer from a recovery standpoint. I think there's obviously everyone is on edge from a health risk standpoint. However, I believe that people want to meet, and I spend a lot of time in the lobby talking to guests, and a lot of those guests are individual business travelers that are getting back out on the road, and they're going in to see their customers that are here in the local Las Vegas area.
Mm-hmm.
So we're starting to see a little bit of that travel come back. So people are getting back into into entertaining a little bit, and into getting back into people's offices for sales calls or business reviews or what have you. And slowly but surely, I know that those meetings will come back as well.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, there's a large number of people that have spent a long time meeting in person, and
Right.
doing it virtually isn't always the answer. So
Yeah.
that's cool to hear. So aside from some of those things, is there anything sort of on the back end within your staff that they're doing to kind of work and sort of enhance the situation by using, I don't know, I know there's some new technology out there that can read temperature, stuff like that. Is there anything, that you guys are using like that?
Yeah, so we have taken a stance that for this property, we are doing temperature checks.
Okay.
And again, as I mentioned, we also have the casino attached. So there's multiple entrances to the entire property. So there are 2 entrances at the casino that are using more of a quicker kind of thermal scan. And then at all the other entrances, we're just using a handheld temporal temperature scan.
Okay.
In addition to that, there are kind of a series of questions, or 4 or 5 questions that you have to answer as you arrive to the property for the first time, such as, have you had a fever? Have you had a cough? Do you feel sick? Just basic things that are the early signs of potential COVID. So we go
that as at the front desk, kind of when people check in.
That's at the front desk as people check in, and then we do a temp check every time someone comes in or out of the property. We try to keep it as quick and as efficient as possible. So we have had to staff up a little bit, because obviously I can't have necessarily the same person checking someone in, doing temperature checks, because multiple people are coming in and out of the property. And we put stanchions up, so there's really one entrance into the main property, and then the side doors are the exit doors only. So again, we have an ingress, egress. And then in our second tower, we're not doing check-ins there, but we have one associate that's there that is doing temperature checks as people come in and out. Behind the scenes, very similar to the front of the house, where we're doing our cleaning protocols and making sure that we are being sanitized when there's shared stations like a front desk station, or an operator at your service station, that those areas are sanitized for each person prior to someone utilizing that station. It gets sanitized by the previous crew or the previous associate. All those things are logged and stored, and that we do get inspected by the Southern Nevada Health District every 2 months as part of this protocol. So with that, we have to make sure that we are adhering to the local standards, as well as, upholding what we want to implement as well.
Definitely. Okay. Yeah. So it sounds like there's a lot of things to be done there. You have
there are a lot of things. It's just a lot of things to think about to keep, we want our associates to be safe, of course. Sure. We want all of our guests to feel safe and to be safe, and want to, at the same time, we don't want to annoy people. We want to make sure that people are having a great experience also, and not bogging them down, because of course masks, face coverings are also a requirement. And not only Marriott has made that a requirement, but in the state of Nevada indoors, it is a requirement as well. So of course we're following that, and that, some people they don't want to do that. So you try to handle it the best you can. However, it is mandatory, and we can't have someone here who is not going to adhere to that. And we find ourselves going around sometimes and having asked people to pull their mask up, get it up off the chin, get it over your nose, just all those basic things. And I'm sure others have had the same experience. But we don't want to be in a position where we could be fined or we could be shut down or anything like that. So want to make sure that, again, that our associates feel safe and that we're all practicing what we preach. And then, of course, we want our guests coming in to enjoy their experience, but also feel that safety as well. And when I go through and read some of the guest service verbatims, those are some of the comments. Clean room. We have wipes, small packets of wipes, sanitizer wipes in the rooms for guests that we put for each stay. Of course, trying to be efficient as possible with that process of getting people in and queue them through that line and get them checked in quickly, but at the same time practicing the temperature check and the face mask policy and all those things.
Yeah, I'm sure every guest feels more comfortable as they proceed through these things.
Yeah, and some have more patience than others.
Go to a hotel at first, but once you're going through all these processes, it's kind of more reassuring. Yeah.
Right.
I was going to ask something and then I got off topic. I was going to say, given the fact that it's a little bit tougher for sure now to get clients back into the hotel, has there been anything that you've been doing as far as incentives to kind of help people, whether it's pricing or other things, or have you just been working with groups on a case-by-case basis to kind of help them, get in? Obviously, it's hard for you because you don't have, the hotel's probably not making the same income as it typically does, so it's hard to give huge incentives. But is there anything that you guys have found that has worked?
From a group perspective, we do have a book buy offer. It's basically something where book your program by the end of this year, let's say, for to be actualized in 2021, and depending on the size of the program, you kind of have a pick list of options to choose from that are kind of these added incentives, whether it be Marriott, meetings, Bonvoy points, or whether it be a coffee break, or whatever, upgrades, or transportation for VIPs and things like that. Just some things that typically come up anyways with meeting planners, and sometimes you see them on RFPs. So just offering those as an incentive to book before the end of the year. From a leisure perspective, we're seeing a lot of drive-in business. So we have a lot of great packages out there that are, stay longer, pay less, things like that. So the longer your stay, the more percentage of a discount that you're able to get. There are cars eat free, which is basically you get a gift cards. We have a lot of drive-in business, so this package includes a gift card for each night of your stay, a gas card, I should say, a gas gift card for each night of your stay to go to a gas station and obviously fill up your car as you're driving. We have a great golf package that's basically golf at the TPC, resort fees included, things like that. We have one of the real popular ones is a gaming package, which includes free play in the casino, includes your resort fee, things like that. So there's some great packages out there to help drive some of that leisure business. We also have, we have very fair rates right now as well. And Marriott, of course, has the best rate guarantee. So you can simply go on Marriott.com and find the best rate there anyways, whether it be a package or whether it be just an individual rate.
Got it. So especially for leisure right now, you can get some good deals.
Yeah, for sure. For leisure, you can get some good deals, and there's plenty of availability, which is a nice thing too. So we run into, again, as I said, we're not fully open in the entire property. Even when we open the Palms Tower, I only open certain floors as needed. So we are creating a little bit of compression internally for ourselves, but we have the ability to, of course, open more rooms when we need to. So, we do have the great rates out there, but you start getting close to the weekends and you see those rates going up a little bit, or you look at the holidays and those rates are going up a little bit as well, because we are seeing that demand. And when I'm out on the front drive, kind of, talking to the valet and greeting guests, and it's a lot of, California. California is our number one. Southern California is number one. Nevada is number two. And then Arizona and Utah are the other two feeder markets that drive into this destination. And we're seeing a lot of that.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah. And you said there are a good number of people coming for golf as well, correct?
Yep, we get, like I said, the golf groups as well as the individual golfers that are coming out and taking advantage of the golf package. And you get a round of golf each night of your stay, so they're getting in, playing a little golf, coming back, enjoying the casino, enjoying the outlets, and moving on.
Definitely. Awesome. Well, that's definitely good to hear. I know we talked about this just a little bit earlier, but could you kind of go more into your outlook for the future, what you guys are planning to do going forward in 2021, and what that kind of looks like? I'm sure you've already implemented a good amount of these things, but is there anything else that you could add on to it that you're kind of planning for 2021?
Sure, it's really difficult because obviously we're not going by any historical data. We
Yeah.
can't look at how we did in 20. You can't look at how you did in 2019. This hotel is typically running 85, 86% occupancy, and now you're putting a budget together that's 45 to 50% occupancy, and you have to be really mindful of your expenses and your labor and all those things, and make sure that we're not staffing to what it used to be. You're staffing to your business levels and making sure that you're managing that margin. I always like to say we have to manage the middle, the top line revenue, and we've got the sales teams and our reservations and marketing and all that are generating that top line revenue. And then the operators have to manage the middle there, manage the expenses and the labor and all that, so that we're flowing through on the bottom up to that expectation.
So whatever's coming in, kind of have to work around that. Yeah.
Right. So for next year, right now, just based on what we have on the books and based on what we're projecting and looking at some other properties and competitive sets and things, we're really not projecting a lot more group than we already have on the books for the first couple of quarters. And then the back half of the year, it starts to ramp up a little bit more. Quarter three is usually
Do you have bookings for later in 2021 already?
There are, yeah. There's business that is on the books for later next year, but we're anticipating getting into the year, and then as things lighten up or restrictions lighten up even more, then we'll grow that group business in the back half of the year. That's where the risk, I would say, lies. Is we're putting a lot of that group expectation into the back half of the year, and if it doesn't materialize, then there's no going back and making adjustments. You're just going to have to live with it. So the good news is, with having as much transient business as we have, you can turn on a faucet, turn off a faucet pretty quickly. So if we don't see group materializing, we can, of course, adjust our rate strategy or adjust the transient strategy and kind of build from there. The other thing we do have going for us, I mentioned earlier, is that social side of things. So weddings, bar mitzvahs, things like that. And that business is not really slowing down. Honestly, I have two people that are back now handling catering sales, and they're overwhelmed with leads and site inspections and detailing programs and things like that. So the nice thing with that business for next year is, typically in our environment, you kind of hold out on that business because you need to get the group. So we need that space to make sure that we get the rooms that come with group. In this case, we're not projecting a lot of group, so we can be a little more lenient or a little more free sell, if you will, and have more free sell availability for the catering sales team into next year. So we could do fairly well on the social catering and on that food and beverage side, and just maybe not as well on the group room side of things. But ultimately, we're obviously down. We'll be up to this year, and obviously down to 2019 or 18, and just
how it's going to go. You can't really change.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. There's nothing we can do about it. We just have to manage to it. And then 2022 is when we're seeing some of the larger group and corporate association type of leads that are coming through, or for 2022 and beyond. Going back to customers that are on the books for 21 and trying to get them to commit to future years as well. Working with other JW properties to kind of do a rotational type of situation with groups that will rotate east and west and get them on the books for multiple years, and leveraging those relationships and those types of opportunities now when we just don't have as much of that organic lead volume coming in.
Yeah, definitely. Are there any things within your sales marketing team that they're doing new potentially to reach out to either customers or even new leads to kind of show how you guys can still take in groups, for meetings and events and stuff.
We did put out a safe meetings little video. It was on LinkedIn. It was posted on our social media sites. The sales teams are using that to send to customers to make sure it's included in any proposals or any type of correspondence that we have with customers. All of the Marriott Global Sales Organization has been sent that video as well, to be able to share with the accounts and share with the customers. And I've seen since we've done that, I've seen a few other properties that have done the same thing. And It's helpful because you kind of get a little, for us anyway, we did a little walk through the property. We walked through some of the protocols. I was on camera with the mask on, talking through some of these things, and just kind of showing how we are practicing safe meetings and how we can ensure their safety when they're here and put their trust in us. So doing some of that, there's one pagers and some marketing one pagers that show a couple of the setups and some new capacities charts and things like that. Just again to show people that we're obviously thinking about this and want to help you still conduct your meeting, but we'll do it in a safe manner and make sure that we're adhering to, if you have any guidelines, and of course adhering to the guidelines that we have here locally as well.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so focusing on the safety thing with them and showing them that it's possible to come back. You just have to keep the the rules intact or the measures.
Right. Give us a chance and we can show you what we can do here at the JW for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Let's see. Outside of I guess what we've talked about overall, is there anything other that kind of stands out to you that you guys are doing or that you've been thinking about a lot lately with all of this going on, or future, anything that you're excited about, skeptical about, optimistic about?
I think for us, just that focusing on the areas that we think are going to be the most impactful for us, and that's smaller meetings right now. I have a team of we have a team of sales managers on the Marriott side that handle 10 to 99 peak. So just make sure that we are communicating with that team, showcasing what we can do to that team, so they in turn can of course roll that out to the customers and RFPs that they're working on. And then that next kind of bucket is at 100 to 200 is kind of that next larger one, and that's handled by sales managers that are more on property here. And again, just working with those customers and just kind of showcasing again what we can do in some of that smaller space. Or we have some great space that is ideal for smaller groups. It's really it's really in its own location. You don't get overrun by convention, and that's kind of what we're targeting right now, those size meetings that you can feel even safer because you're going to be isolated in your own conference center, your own conference space. We could even put your guest rooms in that tower so that you don't have to wander around and go by other people or outlets or lines or anything like that to get to your function space. So again, kind of shifting the marketing efforts and the sales efforts, the direct sales efforts towards that size of group and that type of group that we think is going to give us more of an immediate impact. Mm-hmm. And then at the same time, not losing sight of the future, because that's what I keep telling, as we put together the marketing budget for 2021, everyone is really geared up towards transient business, which of course we need that. And that's what we're seeing right now. But I also don't want to lose sight of 2022 and beyond, or even group in the latter part of 21. So we have to still focus on that group business, communicate with the above property, Marriott, GSOs, all of the third parties that you work with, and then obviously directly with the customers, make sure they have the tools that they need. Our events team came up with some FAQs that can be sent out to those customers that have questions about the safety and about the protocols that we have, and about the guidelines that have been implemented here, by the governor and by the Southern Nevada Health District as well.
Yeah. So there's a lot to be able to information to be able to give them. Are you guys? Do you have someone specific on staff to keep up with all the new regulations and things that are
we
constantly
do.
happening?
We absolutely
probably
do.
have a weekly meeting about it.
Yeah, well, it seems like we do talk about a lot, but we have a really strong risk management team here. And the leader of that team, she's very connected locally with all of the government agencies. So she keeps us in check on what as something new comes out or as some restrictions are lifted, and then we have to go back and figure out how can we implement that here at the property, and then we have to roll that plan out. So things do change. I think the latest one, as I said, was being able to move up to 250 persons. However, with that also came some of the guidelines pushed back on us, which are about kind of policing, if you will, the registration desks I talked about, and the restrooms and ingress, egress, mask patrol, things like that. So we have a little more skin in the game, if you will, as well, to ensure that these events can be successful.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I appreciate you taking the time today. There's been a lot of information that's I'm sure helpful for a lot of people to hear about what's being done. You guys are at the very center of this whole situation, so it's good to hear that you're actually able to to take enough measures to keep things running. And So I'm glad to hear about that. I mean, I think maybe the only other industry that might be in a similar spot or worse, I guess, it would be maybe cruise lines or something. They might be completely out of it. I don't know.
That's the one. It's funny. Before I left Florida, that was the one that there were a couple of cruise lines that were coming into port in Florida because they had something, and ultimately, was coronavirus. I just didn't know what that meant at that point. That was
these cruise ships just started showing up.
Right. That was late February, early March. So yeah, it's definitely been interesting. And you're right. This industry has definitely been hit hard, but it's a very resilient industry and some great associates that are passionate about this property and about the industry and about meetings and serving our guests and taking care of our associates. So obviously the better we do, the more associates we can bring back. And I'm really looking forward to getting there as well.
Yeah. Ultimately there's a ton of people within the sort of whole realm or industry. So yeah, there's tons of people that want to see things go at least mostly back to how they were, or work in some function. And it seems like we're on our way slowly but surely. So, yeah. All right. Well, thanks again for chatting with me today, and appreciate it. And best of luck with everything.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. And best of luck to you as well. And look forward to seeing you on the other side.
All right. Thanks.
Thanks
for watching or listening today. If you would like to hear any more or watch any more in the future, just go ahead and subscribe, whichever podcasting platform you listen to or watch. We post on YouTube as well as many other podcasting platforms. And if you have any questions for us, just go ahead and go over to eventrender.com and you can send us a message through our website there. Thanks and take care.